So I'm a guy that grew up in hardship, and I'm a guy that's created a lot for my life that shouldn't have been created for my life. And the only way to get there is through hard work. You gotta do hard things. I think it makes you a better human. The way I look at it is we need those aspects of struggle. Like I think one of the greatest parts of life in terms of what benefits us is the hardships. A smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor. I think one of the problems we have in society now is we coddle kids and we rob them of their hardships. It's been easy, and it's okay, everyone get a trophy. And then when they get older, but we want a kid all of a sudden to snap out of this. How? What wired us was experience. Those things fed into our programming of who we are, and we didn't develop a skill of navigating the sets of beliefs or the things we saw coming in. We just took it all in and randomly created this identity we live from. So when you decide like, it's too hard today, I don't want to do this today, I'm not motivated, or I can't stay on task, it tells me you haven't done enough dark work. Dark work is hard work done in private, fueled by some kind of ambition that develops a skill and the brazenness to deploy that skill when needed. And a lot of people are wanting to go out and be the people and be the shine, but they haven't done the dark work to shine bright. And so they're struggling with this, but I've done this thing, but you haven't done enough. And if you have those lacking areas of confidence, or maybe a skill set's diminished, you gotta go back and work on those things in the dark. Stop doing everything in the realm of like, hey everybody, watch me and see what I do. Nobody cares. It's your responsibility. Because there's things that we do in the background that nobody will ever know. If you take the shortcuts, you know you took the shortcut. You know, and that diminishes because you are what you consistently do. So there was this window of time where I pulled back. It was for me to create my own sense of self. So I lifted the weights, ran the route, all these kind of things. And when I got to the football field 7 months later, there was a different seated mentality. And what it was is I've done too much work in the dark for you to take what's mine in the light. And when you do that properly, it's a whole different approach to the world. There's this chomping at the bit to get out there, to do more. It's like this grit that's inside you to shine. And the outcome isn't just muscles like we talked about, it's a different sense of self. So all these things are rooted in the same thread of like, what hard work do I have to do for when it comes time to show up in the world, I'm gonna get what's mine, no matter what that is. If it's the job, if it's gonna be the girl, if it's gonna be whatever, I won't stop because I've already paid the price. I'm just waiting to collect my dues.
Success is a strange thing. Presumably, we want success because we think that a more successful life is going to bring us more happiness and more meaning and more fulfillment. But the problem is that we sacrifice the thing that we want, which is happiness, for the thing which is supposed to get it, which is success. And I think, on average, most high performers are miserable. So, what does it mean that the people who we admire the most are the ones who sometimes have the least desirable internal states? If I was to place a bet, I would guess that the majority of high performers are driven by a fear of insufficiency rather than some perfectly balanced, holistic desire to be better. Feeling if I am only worthy of love and acceptance and belonging if I succeed. And being powered by this internal feeling of insufficiency, that can drive a human to do an awful lot of things. You can achieve a hell of a lot because you're prepared to outwork and out-hustle and out-suffer everybody else. And success and progress can ameliorate these feelings of insufficiency. It is the anesthetic that balms over the pain of insufficiency, constantly getting a new hit of dopamine as you reach the next goal. But external success isn't going to fill an internal void. If the pursuit of success is in an effort to make us happy, and in the pursuit of success we make ourselves miserable, why not just shortcut the entire process and just be happy? If your drive comes from a fear of insufficiency and you continue to disprove those fears with success in the real world, and yet those feelings of insufficiency persist, what makes you think that the answer to this problem is more success? It's probably not, right? It's probably something more deep-seated than simply the next trophy or the next award or the next zero on your bank balance. And I think There is no clean answer here, because external accolades do count for a lot. And I also don't think that getting rid of all of your worldly possessions and retreating into a cave in the woods is an optimal strategy. Some degree of external material success is important. But I do think spending some time working out whether there is a shorter, more direct route to the life that we want by removing obstacles rather than pressing harder on the accelerator might be a good question to ask yourself. What is it that genuinely brings me joy? What am I doing that doesn't contribute toward that? And which of these things actually don't serve anything at all? Maybe they're just patterns that I've inculcated through habit or paths of least resistance. So don't outsource your sense of self-worth to the world. Work out how much of the success overcomplicates life and how much of it actually contributes to your happiness. You know?
When I was training in the Olympics, all I knew was that I was obsessed. I wanted to win, and I really deeply lacked empathy in every essence of what that is. And if you had asked me how I feel for 7 years straight, I'd say, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And internally, there was like deep conflict and dissatisfaction. I just felt like I personally wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. I'm so far behind. I'm so unsatisfied with what I see. I was just not present. I was thinking about a past experience in which I lost, which drove me and gave me the anger, hatred, rage, fear, insecurity, self-doubt to motivate myself and lean on that lever to propel and to do something that was extraordinary, which I am not proud of, right? I'm proud of the performances laid out, but the other humanistic components of this person who I became was cold and shut off and played the poker face. And I think there was this like subconscious layer where I was afraid of showing up fully because fully wasn't enough. Everyone who has done something that is uncorrelated with the traditional path has gone through some hardship or traumatic experience, and that triggers something in someone's brain of, I need to fortify myself, strengthen myself, whatever it might be. You have to tap into the darkness, right? And everyone has some semblance of darkness. You're human, right? That's natural. I mean, I think the goal here is not to become so engulfed where it's so toxic where you basically shut the world off. And I've been on both sides of that coin. But at least I know now that I can get off the treadmill and I can work on this. I am willing to embrace the inconsistencies and the self-doubts and the weakness that is there with me. It's a part of my human experience. And slowly I can start to chip away at that. It's not gonna happen overnight. These things take time. Look, psychology and human behavior is like a fascinating topic. Countless studies and books written on this stuff, and it's taken me a long time to understand myself about why I behave the way that I do. Why do I do what I do in relationships? Why do I do what I do in friendships? What am I chasing? Am I actually pursuing something that's important to me as a human? And this is why I love my dad so much, is because he's always telling me, detach and zoom out for a second to see, are you actually headed on a trajectory that is going to give you a life well lived? And how do you define a life well lived is also a part of that process. That's what he's basically always saying. Zoom out. What do you want from life? And what do you believe life wants from you? You have limitless potential. Whatever you want in this world, you can accomplish, and it's yours. You are strong enough. You can do the hard stuff, and you will. But don't forget the human experience. So as you chase and you chase and you chase, don't forget to recenter and bring it back. Just stay grounded.
think during quarantine, I really had a moment when everything went away and I had no events and I had nothing. So I'm just kind of floating in space, unsure of what to do or how to think of myself or how to think of life right now. And I could not see any light in that situation, especially because of what was happening in the world. And I realized that's because work was the only thing I associated value with. You know, I never really thought about, well, what kind of person do you want to be? And if you accomplish all the things on your vision board, how should that make you feel? And how come you don't feel that way right now? And the root of it was that I never had a solid foundation of just what my belief system is. You know, what do I want my values to be? Where do I want to be? Not just professionally, but spiritually, mentally. What do I really care about and what's important? And that's all about building foundation. Quarantine forced me to pause and reflect. It forced me, because otherwise I would have never done it. It was scary for me to figure out my values, but also, more than scary, just really difficult. Because there is no map to do that. We've just never been taught as kids how to do any of this work. I think one thing is that I'm a very all or nothing type person. So I do that with everything. I do it to such a detriment where it's like, it's either perfect or it's nothing. Now I can't enjoy it. And I think that has to do with control. And so I am very critical of myself. And that's why the language coming home was so important to me, because home is not a place you should feel that judgment. Home for me is a place that gives you that feeling of safety, security, no judgment. You can just be and return to what really matters. You know, a reset. So I came up with these places mentally that could be home. That when you go out in the day and all this stuff is going down, where can you come home to in your mind to reset and no judgment and recharge, just like you would physically? This is where you are going to return to spiritually no matter what happens in your day, always, so that you cannot be led astray. Because I get led astray. Distraction is the things that take us away from where we want to be spiritually. So take us away from the home we've created. Suddenly I'm feeling petty, I'm comparing myself to someone, I'm feeling ungrateful. I label all of those things as distractions, not because they aren't valid, but because I don't want to stay there. I want to go there, process whatever needs to happen, and come back to this place where I am grateful and I do have strong values. It's allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to think differently and evolve. I'm gonna go to this place mentally where, Lily, even you don't get to tell yourself all the things that went wrong. You don't get to be that, you let yourself be human at home. It sounds simple, but it's a complex idea of I've given myself permission to be a human. And so I've had to let go of this all or nothing mentality. Hey, you did so great today. It wasn't perfect, but it was really, really good, and we're gonna celebrate that.
%99 of people don't live freely. They live confined by words, those labels given to me by society and by my past and by my accomplishments. And there's this temptation to then spend the next 10 years of my life living out those labels, to think that's who I am and to follow the implicit instructions of those labels. And there's this almost subtle force that you'll face many times a day in your life, of life just saying like, stick to the blueprint and stick to convention. And it's that little bit of resistance where you've got to turn and say, no, we're going to do it this way. The unnecessary pressure to like slide into one of these binary boxes. This is probably why a lot of people get themselves into these like midlife crises where they lose their intrinsic joy for their work, and they start to question who they were because they let society or their past or their mum define who they are, and then they just played that role until they got to 41 years old thinking about jumping out the window. My inspirations, the thing I love and admire most about those individuals was they didn't let their past or a label define them. And that inspires me. I think that's a free way to live. And so I thought the most intrinsically rewarding way I could probably live my life was to resist my labels. I'm a guy with a bunch of skills that loves so many things. I don't have one singular passion, I have tons of passion. And that's why I try and take it back to foundational things, which is like, how do you feel? Just follow your joy and do more of the stuff you like and less of the stuff you don't like. No most important thing for me was getting myself to that point where I knew that intrinsically, no matter what I did, no matter how successful I become, my inherent value doesn't change. And then that has become the platform to be competitive and chase and be aggressive at the things that really matter to me, because the prize at the end of that is worthwhile intrinsically for me. Believing that you're enough whilst also striving for so much more, that kind of foundational thinking is freeing again, and it lets you live a more peaceful life. You know what I mean? So again, this is the war of words and how it ruins people's lives. They're just a bunch of really unhelpful words that we give ourselves to make ourselves make sense. And why be restrictive? Because I'm going to die anyway. It doesn't matter.